I've written two books. One got published and one didn't. I could say I've learned a lot of lessons from doing this. Probably the main lesson you ever learn is to do everything differently than you've ever done it before, and to make a whole lot more mistakes that are different from the mistakes you've made already. I've learned that you don't make any money writing books. I've learned that you don't necessarily get your books published. I've learned that when you do get them published, nobody buys them. But I haven't stopped being interested in writing books. I wrote my books about football. I wrote them because I was interested in football, because I was interested in the consequences of football, because I had things to say about what football meant and about what was happening in football that I thought were of interest or importance, and because I'd spent years writing about these things for magazines and people seemed to be interested and they seemed to think that I had something worthwhile to say. So on the assumption that people were interested, I wrote a book about the 1994 World Cup in the United States, and I called it The Best World Cup Money Can Buy, which explains its whole message in just the title, about the commercialisation of football. And I wrote this book, and I sent it off to 17 different publishers, and most of them didn't bother to reply, and those that did reply didn't like it. And so I'd spent several months of my life completely wasting my time writing a book that no one apparently was interested in. Anyway, I hadn't completely wasted it, because I decided to publish it myself, and so I spent a couple of £1,000 getting it printed, and I managed to get it distributed in a very limited sense to a very small number of bookstores, and I got it sent to a specialist football bookstore, and I got it sent to a specialist sports book club, and it still sells today, 4 years on. And it sold about 550 copies, which doesn't sound like very many, but believe me, there are many books that don't sell as many as 550 copies. It's one of the first things you learn after you've started writing books is how few people actually buy them and how few actually get sold. Having done the first one, though, I wrote a second one, which I called Moving the Goalposts, which was about the commercialisation of British football. And this time I thought, I'm not going through all that again. I'm not going to write one first and then not going to publish a second. So this time I wrote round for an agent, and I found an agent who was interested in the idea, and so I wrote a synopsis of the book, sent the synopsis to the agent, and the agent took it to a couple of publishers, and a publisher was interested, and I signed a contract, and they offered to pay me more than £3,000 for my book, which I was very pleased by, and which kept me going for quite a while. And I wrote the book, and because I'm lazy, I wrote it in 3 months, which would have 3 months before the deadline, 4 or 5 hours every night. And I went on holiday, and the book was published a few months later. It was published the day after I actually got made redundant from my job, which was a bit symbolic. I thought, well, this is the good Lord telling me that I need to write books rather than do my job in the NHS anymore. And 900 people bought it, and it was in all the bookshops, and it got a lot of publicity. I was on television twice to promote it. I sat on a sofa late night on Channel 4. On one side of me was the swimmer Sharon Davies, and on the other side of me was the footballer Bruce Grobbelaar. And I'm not as famous as them, and I'm not going to get as famous as them because nobody bought my book. But there you go. I know as a result of that even if your book is published and distributed and publicised and you get on television to talk about it, still nobody buys your book, and still it's very unlikely anybody's going to have any interest in it. So next time I get round to writing a book, I'm not going to give up my day job. I'm still going to get a publisher beforehand, and I'm going to have absolutely no expectations of it whatsoever. And probably having done that, it'll turn into a bestseller. Or at least that's what I'm crossing my fingers for, although, to be honest, I don't believe a word of it.